Yeah, okay. So, good morning, everybody, dear students. So, today we have eminent speaker, Dr. L. Sivasankar Reddy, sir, Professor, Department of Pharmaceutical Analysis, Santiram College of Pharmacy, Nandyal. So, sir, dear sir, I welcome you, sir. So,
Thank
I,
you.
I welcome you today's lecture.
Yeah.
So, take over, sir. Please take
Okay,
over this
thank you.
session, sir.
Thank you, Sudhir
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, students. This is Shivashankar Reddy. In today's class, we will discuss about the calcium channel blockers, which are used as antihypertensive agents. Okay. So these, apart from other antihypertensive agents, calcium channel blockers are one category where they are used as antihypertensive agents. Okay. The target for these calcium channel blockers, which are used as antihypertensive agents, the targets are the calcium channels. As the name indicates, that calcium channels are
Sorry
the.
for interruption, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, 1 minute, sir.
yeah.
Ganesh, please mute yourself. So very nice will come. Background noise is going on. So I
Okay, sir.
request, after joining this lecture, please mute yourself. Okay.
Okay. So the,
Yes. So go on, sir. Go ahead, sir.
yeah,
Sorry for the interruption. Okay.
the targets for this calcium channel blockers are the calcium channels themselves. See, there are at least 9 different types of calcium channels which are there in the body. Of them, the important ones are the 4 types of calcium channels. That is the T type, L type, P type, and N type. So what does T stands for? T stands for transient, L stands for long-lasting calcium channels, P stands for Purkinje calcium channels, N for neuronal calcium channels. So from this part, the probable question that can be asked is the what type of calcium channels are the target for calcium channel blockers which are used as antihypertensive agents? Then your answer must be L. That is L for long lasting. Long lasting calcium channel blockers are the ones which are useful as antihypertensive agents. Okay. Then coming to the classification of these calcium channel blockers, we have mainly 4 types of calcium channels blockers. That is the drug first category is 1,4-dihydropyridine. The which is the example is nifedipine. You can just see the structure. This is the 1,4-dihydropyridine structure, and this is the example nifedipine. And they are commonly abbreviated as 1,4-DHPs. 1,4-DHP, which stands for 1,4-dihydropyridines. 1,4-dihydropyridines. Then the second category is phenylalkylamines. The example in this class is verapamil, and the next example is that is next class is benzothiazepines. So the phenylalkylamines, so because they are the derivatives of phenylalkylamines, that's why they are called as, they belong to a class phenylalkylamines. Here the basic structure in the third category, that is the benzothiazepines. That is, see here, if you look into the structure here, so benzothiazepine, so it is a benzene fused with a 7-membered nucleus. So the example for this is diltiazem. Then the fourth class of the drugs is diaminopropanol ethers. So in this diaminopropanol ethers, the example is bepredil. Bepredil is the example. So there, and how to remember them. So 1,4-dihydropyridines, that is the nifedipines. So this 1,4-dihydropyridine class also called as dipins. Commonly they are called as dipins because the series of the compounds which are present in this class, they end with the dipins. That's why this 1,4-dihydropyridines are also called as dipins. Okay. Then coming to the, see how to remember these names. So phenylalkylamines, P starts with it, and V here, verapamil, B benzodiazepines, and D BD, deltiazem, and diaminopropanol ethers. So D starting letter and B is bepridyl, that is the starting letters. That is, so PV, BD, and DB. So this is how you can remember the examples very easily. Then coming to the structure, that is the 1,4-dihydropyridine class. See here, the basic nucleus or the basic skeleton of 1,4-dihydropyridines is here. So here you have the substitutions, R1 substitution, and then here it is the CH3. So 1,4-dihydropyridine. See here, actually double bond exists here. So the heterocyclic nucleus present in 1,4-dihydropyridines is 1,4-dihydropyridine. See, pyridine is the unsaturated one is in this way. Okay. But there is addition of one molecule of H2 to it. So which is giving the partially saturated compound, which is called as 1,4-dihydropyridine. This is called as 1,4-dihydropyridine. Okay. Then coming to the different types of examples in this class. So examples include the case of dipins. So here remember that we have written in order of the alphabets. That is the A, that is A, you have amlodipine, F, felodipine. Then all other compounds, they start with N, that is nicardipine, nifedipine, nimoldipine, nisoldipine. Okay. So why we have to remember these things means when we study the SAR, then they will ask which substitution is essential or what is the substitution at this particular position. In such cases, then we'll have to remember the at which position the substitution is present. Okay. So here, let me again tell you that we have written them in the order of the alphabets A, F, and N. In N series also, they are according to alphabets. Nicar, N-I-C, N-I-F, okay, N-I-M, N-I-S. Okay, that's why we have underlined this part. Nicar, Nif, Nim, and Nis. Okay. Now coming to the substitutions here. You have on this nucleus the R1 substitution, R2 substitution, and R3 substitution. Coming to the numbering of this 1,4-dihydropyridine, so it is a clockwise direction. Numbering of 1,4-dihydropyridine is in clockwise direction. Okay, see how the seconds of the clock move, so it will move in this direction. So the order of numbering is also in this direction. So in here, the C6 substitution, we have told it as R1, and C5 substitution as R2, and C3 substitution as R3. And at the C4 substitution, we have a phenyl nucleus, and substitution on phenyl nucleus, we have made it as X. Okay, we have written it as X. Then in case of the amlodipine, okay, so there is this X substitution on phenyl nucleus is chloro, that is 2-chloro. That means position at this particular position there is chloro substitution. And the amlodipine is the only compound where the C2 and C6 substitution are different. Okay, C2 and C6. That means, see, this is C2 substitution. Okay, that is CH3 is C2 substitution. and C6 substitution is this particular part. Okay, so they are different. That's why we can just say that they are different. And see, in the phenyl nuclear substitution, we have mono substitution, that is orthochloro substitution. So please remember here amlodipine, that is C2 and C6 substitutions are different. See, but if you look into other class, that is C6 is CH3 and C2 is CH3. That means C2 and C6 are similar in all the class of compounds except amlodipine. Please remember this one. So that's why we have written a star mark. Then coming to the next part. See, the X substitution on phenyl nucleus except for phylodipine, which is a disubstituted. All of them are mono substituted. That is amlodipine, nicardipine, nifedipine, nimoldipine, nisoldipine, all of them are disubstituted. Only mono substituted. Only phylodipine is disubstituted. Then how to remember the order of substitution on the phenyl nucleus? Okay, RC4 substituted phenyl. Okay, so here we told that we have written them in the alphabetic order: Nic, Nif, Nim, Nis. Okay, and the order is mono substituted 3232. And also look into the all compounds which start with N. Okay, nicardipine, nifedipine, nimoldipine, nisoldipine, they all contain nitro group on the phenyl substitution. So that's why their names also have started with nitro groups. Okay, and one more thing that you'll have to concentrate here is, see, look into the structure of these substitutions on nifedipine. So nifedipine, the R2 and R3, that is C3 and C5 substitutions are symmetrical. That's why this compound is called as the symmetrical compound. C3 and C5, they are having the same substitution. That's why they are called as this symmetrical compound. Nifedipine is the only symmetrical compound with respect to C5 and C3 substitution. Okay, so questions here, remember the substitution in case of amlodipine at the C2 and C6, important. And phenyl nucleus substitution on phenyl nucleus, it is either at the second position or third position, and only disubstituted compound is phylodipine, and other compounds are mono substituted at the phenyl nucleus, and the substituents are chloro or nitro. Remember, chloro or nitro. In the first two compounds, amlodipine and phylodipine, it is the chloro compound, that is chloro atom substituted. Whereas in the next four compounds, that is the nicardipine, nifedipine, the nimoldipine and nisoldipine, it is the nitro. And at which position nitro is substituted? 3232. So order you remember, 3232 is the order. This is how you can remember this. Then next, coming to the other form, see, all are methyl esters except the nimodipine at which position? At this R3 or C3. So if you look into them, all of them are methyl esters. This is methyl ester, this is methyl ester, this is also methyl ester. Except nimoldipine, all of them at C3 are the methyl esters. In case of the nimoldipine, the ester is isopropyl ester. Okay, so that is how the how we have to remember the substitutions on different calcium channel blockers, that is amlodipine, phylodipine, nicardipine, and so on. Then coming to the SAR part of 1,4-dihydropyridines. So the basic skeleton is, as we have seen before, this is the basic skeleton. Okay, 1,4-dihydropyridine class, and we have all written the same. Now we will start with the C4 substitution. That is, C4 substitution is normally a phenyl ring which has got the optimum activity. The other substitutions are either if you substitute with other ring systems or alkyl or alkyl systems, activity is reduced or sometimes abolished. So we have to say at C4 position, phenyl ring is a must for optimal activity. But you can have heteroaromatic ring systems like pyridine. Okay? But thing is, if you substitute the phenyl nucleus with pyridine, there is the animal toxicity seen in these compounds. So we cannot use heteroaromatic compounds because of the animal toxicity. Okay. Then small non-polar alkyl or cycloalkyl groups can be substituted, but they lead to reduced in action, that is the activity when compared to the phenyl nucleus. So this is with respect to the C4 substitution seen in the 1,4-dihydropyridine class. Then coming to the next part, that is substitutions on the phenyl ring. As we have seen, the phenyl ring substitution, the size and position is size and position is important for this substitutions on the phenyl nucleus, but not the electronic nature. That means whether it is electron withdrawing or electron donating is not important, but only what is the size of the substitution and what is the position of substitution. When you have seen the structure of these compounds, we have seen that only two substitutions are possible. That is second and third are ortho and meta, but not para. Okay. So here also we have written the same here. Ortho or meta is optimal activity, but if there are no substitutions or para substituted, we don't have the activity. There is reduction in activity. So always the phenyl nucleus must be substituted at the ortho or meta position, or second or third position, or second and third, or ortho and meta position. Okay. And in most of the cases, the substitutions at ortho and meta are electron withdrawing groups. Okay. But even electron donating groups also can give us the good activity. Then why we are concerned of the substitutions at second and third position, or second or third position, and unsubstituted or para substituted? Because when ortho or meta substituted, what happens is the angle between the 1,4-dihydropyridine ring and the phenyl ring, okay, and the phenyl ring, they must be 90 degrees with each other, or they must be perpendicular to each other. So to have this configuration, like so perpendicular, they must be perpendicular to each other, so that to have the lock or conformation lock, which allows for the proper binding of these two substitutions, that is 1,4-dihydronucleus and the benzene with ortho to each other. So that's why we are telling that ortho or meta substitutions are important to give a 90-degree lock conformation to the two ring systems. Then coming to the substitutions on the R1 or C6. So except for amlodipine, all 1,4-dihydropyridines have C2 and C6 substitutions as methyl groups. Okay. So except amlodipine, in all the cases, it is the CH3 substitution or methyl substitution. Then amlodipine has enhanced potency when compared to nifedipine. Because why we are discussing this point is because amlodipine has got the bulkier group at the C6 substitution, whereas in case of the nifedipine, the groups are similar. C2 and C6 is methyl group. So C2 and C6 are methyl groups. So they are less bulkier than the substitution or the C6 in case of amlodipine. So here the bulkier groups can be substituted at C2 or C6, which enhance potency. So here what we have to remember is amlodipine is more potent than nifedipine because of the bulkier group which is present at the C6 position. So this is one thing that you will have to remember. So bulkier groups can be substituted, and if they are substituted with bulkier groups, then you have increase in potency. Then the nature of this 1,4-dihydropyridine ring. So if you reduce the 1,4-dihydropyridine ring, then we get the pyridine. So this is the pyridine nucleus. And if you oxidize it, then you get piperidine. This is it. And then substitution at N1 with any of the, so here we don't have any substitution on N1. Okay. So if you substitute this hydrogen with any other groups, okay. So all these things, either reduced form of 1,4-dihydropyridine or oxidized form of 1,4-dihydropyridine or substitution of the H present on the nitrogen, they all lead to reduction in activity or completely abolish the activity. So this is one thing that you will have to remember. Then coming to the substitutions on the other part, that is the R2 and R3. Okay, R2 and R3 part here. Okay, so here in this case, the nifedipine is the only symmetrical molecule, that is where R2 and R3 will have the same substitution. So that's why this, remember, nifedipine symmetrical compound. Then all of them are asymmetrical compounds, and selectivity, this asymmetrical nature of substitution at R3 and R2 will lead to specificity towards the blood vessels. Okay, right? Then ester groups optimizes activity. So most of them are esters. R3 and R2 are esters. So esters will optimize the activity. Then electron withdrawing groups reduce antagonistic activity, may even show agonistic activity. So if they are substituted, this R2 and R3 positions, if they are substituted with electron withdrawing groups, they reduce the activity, or sometimes they are completely reversing the activity to agonistic calcium channel modulators. So that's why these 1,4-dihydropyridines are sometimes called as the calcium channel modulators, because they can either block the channel or enhance the conduction of calcium channels. That's why they are called as calcium channel blockers. The best example for this is isradapine. So in the isradapine, if the C3 ester is replaced with nitro group, okay, so that is, as we know that NO2 is a electron withdrawing group, so it produces Ca2 activator activity, or it is agonistic activity. Remember, so here the compound that you have to remember is isradapine. If substituted with the NO2 instead of the ester, then it shows agonistic activity. That is the other point that you will have to remember. Then coming to the conformations at this particular part. Okay, so this particular whole of the systems. So this part. Okay, so if you isolate them and write, then they are in this configuration. Okay, so here when we talk of C double bond C systems, then the type of isomerism is cis or trans isomers. Okay, right? So similarly, if you have this particular system, so the R2 substitution, and this is R3 substitution, or it is C3 and this is C5 substitution. So always the isomerism or stereochemistry at this particular place must be anti-planar. They must be in this, that is the double bond ring with the ring and the carbonyl ring must be far apart here. Okay, And in case of the R3 or C3 substitution, they must have a syn-planar between the carbonyl and the double bond. Whereas in this R3 or C5 position, it must be antiplanar. Remember, it must be antiplanar at this particular position, and it must be syn-planar at this particular position. So this is all about the that is SCR of the 1,4-dihydropyridine class. Then coming to the mechanism of action. Okay, mechanism of action of calcium channel blockers. Okay, so here the main activity by which these calcium ions act as antihypertensive agents means, so they uncouple the contractile mechanism of vascular smooth muscles, that is blood vessels, which requires calcium. So they will not allow the calcium which is required for the actin and myosin fibers, which will lead to contraction of the muscle and reduce the diameter of the blood vessel. Okay, so by inhibiting the availability of calcium ions, we can prevent the contraction of the vascular smooth muscle of blood vessels. That is, vascular smooth muscle itself mean that they are the blood vessels. So when there is calcium not available, then no contraction occurs and spasm of the blood vessel will not be there, and thereby the diameter is as usual and there is no hypertension. Okay, then peripheral arterial resistance is reduced more than venous beds. That is, the arteries are more dilated when compared to the venous blood vessels. Okay, then coming to the activity, because here we have discussed 4 types of calcium channel blockers, but they all do not have a common binding site for the inhibition of this calcium ions calcium ion channels. Okay, so here the phenylalkylamines, that is the example is verapamil, and benzothiazepines, that is the diltiazem. So these 2 compounds have both cardiac and as well as vascular effects. Okay, and thus they are used as anti-anginal, anti-arrhythmic and anti-hypertensive. Okay, so the 2 classes, that is verapamil and diltiazem, which belong to phenylalkylamines and benzothiazepines respectively, can act as anti-anginals, anti-arrhythmic agents and anti-hypertensive drugs. So where do these drugs bind? That is, where do these calcium channel blockers bind? They bind to the receptor, okay, located within the central alpha subunit of L type of potential dependent channel. L type of potential dependent channel. So what type? We have told there are different types like the P type, N type, that is neuronal, Purkinje type. All of it, the L type is more important. Please remember, L type of the potential dependent channels of calcium channels. Okay, then coming to the binding sites of these different drugs in the at the L type of alpha part of the L type receptor. See, the receptor has 3 different binding sites for the 3 different classes of drugs. That is the phenylalkylamines, benzothiazepines and 1,4-dihydropyridines, which are represented by their examples like verapamil, diltiazem and 1,4-dihydropyridine. So 3 distinct allosteric sites are possible. We know that allosteric site means, see, the site, if one compound is binding at one particular site, there is also effect on other binding sites available. Then that type of sites are called as allosteric site. For example, site 1, site 2, site 3, if I tell. So if a compound is binding at site 1, then it will induce the conformational change at site 2 and site 3. Similarly, if a compounding bond is bound at site 2, then it induces conformation change at C1 and C3. Similarly, at C3, If it binds, then change in conformation at C1 and C2. So such type of the binding sites are known as allosteric binding sites or allosteric sites. So that's we have written here as this is an hypothetical binding site that we have written for the two different classes, that is the uh, phenylalkylamines, PV, that is verapamil, BD, benzothiazepine, and diltiazem. Okay. See here, I'm just drawn a hypothetical picture for a easy understanding. See, when verapamil binds at its binding site, which we have written it as 1, then what happens is when it binds at the verapamil binding site, then the sites for the other two drugs, that is diltiazem and 1,4-dihydropyridines, is blocked. That means they will undergo conformational changes so that they cannot go and bind to their specific sites. Only when verapamil is bound, the binding sites of diltiazem and DHP will undergo change and they cannot bind to their respective sites when verapamil is present at its binding site. So that's why we have written here. So comfortable, it is going, and the other two things. So verapamil is in, whereas the diltiazem and 1,4-dihydropyridines are out. So they cannot bind, so they are outside. Then coming to the next, say when verapamil is not, that is when diltiazem or 1,4-dihydropyridine is bound at their particular sites, then verapamil cannot bind. So that means V is out, D and 1,4-DHP are in. That is when either this is bound or this is bound, then verapamil cannot bind on its site because verapamil binding site undergoes change in the binding site conformation. Okay. So then coming to the, if you leave out the verapamil, then what is the effect of these sites, changes in the sites at the binding site of diltiazem and 1,4-DHP? That is, see, when diltiazem is bound, then it enhances the binding of 1,4-DHP, or the other way around. If 1,4-DHP is binding at its site, it enhances the binding of diltiazem. So that's why we have written this. So mutually benefit each other. They travel in the same way, okay, and bind and enhance their binding affinity at their respective sites. So the allosteric modification of their binding sites will enhance the binding of these drugs to the binding sites mutually. Then coming to the other condition, binding of either of diltiazem or 1,4-DHP prevent binding of verapamil. That's why there is no verapamil here. See, 1,4-dihydropyridines, that is example, one of the pyridines, that is all depins. Okay. They are primarily vasodilator in action. And the verapamil and diltiazem, they are vasodilator and cardiac depressant action. That's why these two, that is verapamil and diltiazem, we told they can be used as anti-anginal, the anti-hypertensive, anti-arrhythmic also. So because they have activity on both the, that is vasodilator activity and cardiac depressant activity. That's why they have more application orient. But whereas the vasodilators, that is 1,4-dihydropyridines, are only acting as vasodilators. So if they give you in exam about verapamil, diltiazem, and nifedipine, okay, which of them is going to act as only vasodilator, then your answer must be the 1,4-dihydropyridine class or any depin which is there. Okay, if your answer, if one of them is like A is this and B is this and C is this and D is none of the above or all of the above, then your answer is the what is called as the nifedipine, which is acting as only vasodilator activity. Then if the other question can be the other way around, which of these has got anti-anginal, anti-arrhythmic and anti that is vasodilator activity, then anti-hypertensive activity, then you have to write both verapamil and diltiazem. That is where you have to remember. Then the 1,4-dihydropyridine class. So this is the one of the side effects. So what the reason for this side effect? That is, see, all these compounds we are using as antihypertensive agents, but sometimes these drugs can induce hypertension also. So why this hypertension is induced? Because 1,4-dihydropyridine drugs, if you take, they have the reflex mechanism. See, reflex mechanism means in our body we have baroreceptors and chemoreceptors. Baroreceptors will are these baroreceptors, they they can sense the changes in blood pressure. Okay, so when we are using these 1,4-dihydropyridines as antihypertensives, so they bring down the blood pressure and hypertension to the normal state. With this change, when there is a drop in the blood pressure, then the baroreceptors sense this change in blood pressure, and they will try to increase the blood pressure. So that's why we call them reflex mechanism. So reflex mechanism is very prominent in 1,4-dihydropyridines or depin class, which will lead to increase in heart rate, which is not a desirable condition. So this is an adverse effect or a side effect that you will have to remember. Then verapamil and diltiazem, there is phenylalkylamines and benzothiazepine class, they have less reflex mechanism. So here, which of these compounds will have the increase in heart rate in spite of their antihypertensive activity means, then you have to say that depin class of compounds have got the chances of increase in heart rate because of the reflex mechanism, that is the baroreceptors which are present at the initial part of aorta. Okay, then coming to the nature of these physical properties of these calcium channel blockers. See, all the calcium channel blockers, that is verapamil, diltiazem and 1,4-dihydropyridines are basic in nature. They are all basic in nature. Then verapamil and diltiazem are more basic than 1,4-dihydropyridines. Okay, so why means we'll see in the next point. So remember, which of the following is more basic? Then your answer must be verapamil and diltiazem when compared to 1,4-dihydropyridines. Then why this verapamil and diltiazem are they exist as the ionized state at physiological pH? Because see, they have the tertiary amines in their structure. Due to these tertiary amines at physiological pH, they can undergo ionization and they have pKa values. Okay, so verapamil pKa value is 8.9, and whereas the diltiazem pKa value is the 7.7, and which they will be circulating at the peripheral part, and it is actually the site where they should go and act on the blood vessels. Okay, so this is the physical nature and their ionizations. And then coming to the metabolism of the 1,4-dihydropyridines. See, the 1,4-dihydropyridines are commonly metabolized by the liver enzyme CYP3A4. CYP3A4. You have to remember CYP3A4. Then what are the changes that this 1,4-dihydropyridine ring will undergo during the metabolism by the action of CYP3A4 enzyme? So the 1,4-dihydropyridine ring is converted into the pyridine ring. That means it will undergo unsaturation. Okay, so the hydrogens are removed. Okay, so it will undergo the removal of the hydrogens and unsaturation is seen, and the pyridine ring is formed here. And the metabolite, which is having this pyridine ring, is inactive. The metabolite is inactive. Then the nisoldepine compound will undergo hydroxylation. Okay, and one thing that you will have to remember, it is asked in previous question papers also, the co-administration of 1,4-dihydropyridines with grape juice. So when we see enzyme induction or enzyme inhibition, so this is one example where the enzyme inhibition, liver enzymes are inhibited in this class. Okay, so when grape juice is given, the grape juice inhibits the enzyme, that is CYP450 enzyme, which is present in the intestine, and thereby increase the systemic concentration of 1,4-dihydropyridine. So you'll have to remember there is increase in concentration of 1,4-dihydropyridine compound with the inhibition of that is metabolizing enzyme CYP450, which is present in the intestine. Then the other, in the other classes, the metabolism, for example, verapamil. Verapamil is metabolized to N-demethylated product. N-demethylated means removal of methyl group is known as N-demethylated. That is the methyl group which is present on the nitrogen. Okay, so it is converted into norverapamil. So no R. So no R. No R means R is substitution R. So here CH3 we have removed. That's why we are going to call it as norverapamil. See, the metabolite of this verapamil, which is norverapamil, has got 20% activity as that of the parent compound verapamil. Okay, so here metabolite is also active, but not as active as the parent compound verapamil, but norverapamil is only 20% as active as that of verapamil. Then coming to the next compound, the diltiazem. The diltiazem will undergo metabolism to deacetyl diltiazem, that is loss of acetyl group COCH3 is deacetylation. Okay, so and the deacetylated compound is known as deacetyl diltiazem, okay, which is the metabolite of diltiazem, and this is also active. The metabolite is also active. It is 25 to 30% as active as the parent compound diltiazem. So remember here the metabolite of 1,4-dihydropyridine, that is the nifedipine, is inactive, whereas verapamil metabolite is norverapamil, which is 20% active. Then diltiazem, deacetyl diltiazem, the metabolite which is 25 to 30% as active as the diltiazem. Okay, so this is all about the calcium channel blockers. Okay, then coming to the next topic, that is organic nitrates, which are used as anti-anginal drugs. Anti-anginal drugs. Okay, so what is angina? Angina is sudden discomfort seen in the chest portion is known as angina. Okay, so the drugs which are used to treat these anginal situation are known as anti-anginal drugs. Anti-anginal drugs. So the commonly used anti-anginal drugs are the esters of simple organic alcohols or polyols. Alcohols or polyols. So these alcohols or polyols, except for amyl nitrate, which is not a there is the ester of these organic alcohols or polyols. Then the next point is that these organic nitrates, they are lipophilic and volatile in nature. Lipophilic means they are more hydrophobic in nature. Okay, and volatile is they can easily evaporate at room temperature itself. Okay, then volatility is one important feature that we consider for the formulation process. Okay, and this is also responsible for the quick onset of action. Higher the volatility of the drug, the onset of action is also quick in that particular case. Then there are some other points that you have to see in this organic nitrates, is that these organic nitrates, in the presence of moisture, they will undergo hydrolysis, and these hydrolyzed products are inactive in nature. These hydrolyzed products are inactive in nature. Then the nitrate esters, which are the organic nitrates, so they are explosive in nature when they are in their purest form. That is, when they are in their purest form, they are explosive in nature. Okay. So hence what we have to do, these organic nitrates means they will have to be diluted with different vehicles and excipients while we are going to formulate them. So we will have to suitably dilute them so that they do not form the explosive compounds. So the lipophilic nature is useful in emergency treatment of anginal episodes. As I was telling you that the greater the volatility, the uh, quick onset of action is seen. So, and also lipophilic nature is higher means their absorption rate will be higher. Okay. So rapid absorption takes place because of the higher lipophilic nature of these organic nitrates. Okay. Then the organic nitrates, how do they act? They are the source of nitric oxide. Remember, they will ask you whether it is NO2, okay, NO3 or NO. Okay, so nitric oxide, NO is the form which is the active compound or active form of the organic nitrates which acts on the blood vessels. So which acts on the blood vessels. Remember, nitric oxide, right? So NO2, NO3, NO. So here NO is the answer. Then nitrodilators, how do they act as the anti-anginal drugs means, or how they act on the blood vessels means, they mimic the endogenous nitric oxide. This nitric oxide is generated within the blood vessels when there is a injury to the endothelium cells. That is the endothelium cells of the the blood vessels. Okay, so naturally they generate nitric oxide. So the organic nitrates will lead or will form the organic nitric oxide, which will lead to the changes in the blood vessel. Okay, that is diameter of blood vessel. So these blood vessels will have free sulfhydryl groups present in the inner walls of the blood vessel, then which are responsible for venodilation. That is, when they react with the nitric oxide, they form nitrosothiol intermediates, and these nitrosothiol intermediates, they activate guanylate cyclase enzyme. Guanylate cyclase enzyme. So what are the intermediate that is formed here is nitrosothiol group is formed. And what is the group with which this nitric oxide reacts is sulfhydryl groups. So remember, sulfhydryl groups, and the intermediate is nitrosothiol group. And this nitrosothiol group activates guanylate cyclase enzyme. Guanylate cyclase enzyme. So this guanylate cyclase enzyme will lead to increase in cyclic GMP levels, and increase in cyclic GMP levels block the calcium ions. And when calcium ions are not available, that is, the calcium ions are not available, then there is no muscle contraction, smooth muscle contraction in the blood vessels, and thereby there is no spasm generated. Okay, so the depletion of sulfhydryl groups, means, so the bonding between the sulfhydryl group and nitric oxide, NO, is a covalent bond. Okay, is a covalent bond. As we know that this is a strong bond, and it stays for the lifetime of this sulfhydryl group. Okay, that's why whenever all these sulfhydryl groups are occupied by the nitric oxide, that is NO, then the prolonged administration of the anti-anginal drugs, okay, organic nitrates, they will not show the anti-anginal effect, because the sulfhydryl groups are already occupied and they do not generate the cyclic GMP, and they do not have the property of blocking the calcium ions. Okay. Then coming to the adverse effect of the organic nitrates. Postural hypotension is one particular adverse effect that is commonly seen with this anti-anginal drugs. Okay, so the structure of the anti-anginal drugs uh, are, that is, as we have seen few examples. The examples are, say, the the example is isosorbate dinitrate. So the structure of isosorbate dinitrate is this way. This is the structure of isosorbate dinitrate. So structure of isosorbate dinitrate. So this is the structure. Then the substitution of ONO2 at this particular position and at this ONO2. This is an example, that is isosorbate dinitrate. So dinitrate. So these nitrates ONO2 are responsible for generation of NO endogenously. Okay, they generate the NO in the blood vessels. Okay, so when these drugs are given, that is isosorbate dinitrate, when it is given sublingually, so it can be given sublingually, that is just placing this formulation isosorbate dinitrate tablet under the tongue, lingual, sublingual, under the tongue. So it effects begins within 2 minutes. So within 2 minutes, the drug is absorbed into the circulation, and then it shows the anti-anginal activity, shorter duration of time when it is given orally. So oral tablets are not effective in acute episodes. Then there is repeated, that is short lived the anginal effects. In such cases, these drugs, that is the oral formulations, are not effective. The onset of action ranges from 15 to 30 minutes for these drugs. The major route of metabolism involves the denitration to isosorbate. So the metabolite that is formed for this compound, metabolite that is formed for this compound is isosorbate 5-mono nitrate, right, which has much longer half-life than the parent isosorbate dinitrate. So here what you have to remember, that the metabolite which of these, the isosorbate dinitrate, is having greater T half when compared to the isosorbate dinitrate. So the parent compound is isosorbate dinitrate, okay, and its metabolite is isosorbate 5-mononitrate, which is having greater T half when compared to the isosorbate dinitrate. So you will have to remember, this is one important thing. Okay. So then other compound which belongs to this class, that is the organic nitrates, is the nitroglycerin. Okay. So the structure of nitroglycerin is as follows. Okay. So this also has got ONO2 groups in it. ONO2. Okay. And the compound, that is nitroglycerin. So this is the structure of nitroglycerin. Okay. So what is the starting material for synthesis of nitroglycerin? As the name itself is, we have in the compound itself, final compound, that is the glycerin. So structure of the glycerin for the starting material of, that is synthesis of nitroglycerin, is glycerin. So this is the structure of glycerin. Then what is the starting material for the synthesis of isosorbate dinitrate? That is, what is the starting material for synthesis of isosorbate? So it can be like a glucose molecule. You can start with glucose, and this on treatment with the, on we can say reduction, on reduction with the hydrogen in presence of platinum catalyst. So it is converted into D-sorbitol. So this on treatment with the, that is what you call them as, that is on treatment with H2SO4, they will undergo ring cyclization, okay, to give you the isosorbate, that is the which on further treatment with nitric acid, okay, and that is nitrating mixture. We call that as nitrating mixture, H2SO4, and that is concentrated nitric acid and concentrated sulfuric acid. So on treatment, that is, it will undergo, that is nitro groups are the nitro groups will be the OH groups will convert into the nitro groups. Okay, so this is how the final compound is synthesized from the glucose. Okay, so glucose is the starting material, then converting this glucose into sorbitol, that is by reduction, and then on treatment with the sulfuric acid, then you have the reduced forms of these compounds into the ring cyclization occurs with treatment with H2SO4, and the cyclic forms on treatment with the nitrating mixture, that is H2SO4 and nitric acid, will give us the isosorbate dinitrates. Okay. Nitrate. So this is with respect to the calcium channel blockers and the organic nitrates, which are used. These calcium channel blockers are used as antihypertensive drugs, and whereas the anti-anginal drugs, that is the organic nitrates, are used as anti-anginal drugs.